Well, some of you say, well, what about Washington? He owned those 300 slaves. He could have just freed them right on the spot. We wouldn't have had to wait 90 years. Well, Washington had many lengthy debates with himself about this, because he liked the idea of doing this. He tried to get the colony and then the state of Virginia to abolish slavery. They wouldn't. That would have made it easier. So Washington's saying, well, I could unilaterally free my 300 slaves. Yeah. And then he began to write down arguments against. What would my slaves do? Well, they're not going to be hired on other plantations. Free blacks to work with slave blacks on another plantation. That's what the slaves were trained for, the plantation labor. They're not going to be hired in the North, where they don't have the skills for sail making, shoe making, and other industries that are going on in the North. They would be discriminated against even if they had equal skills, but they probably wouldn't have equal skills in most cases. They might starve to death. So Washington said, well, one thing I could do is I could hire them. I could go to a wage system and say, hey, everybody, you're free, but you can work for me. Well, he debated that, but he didn't act on that either. He's saying, well, the problem there is I have good years and I have bad years. And once you're into that wage economy, the potential problem is on bad years where I see the crop prices are low, I may want to shift into other enterprises or maybe not do much of anything in the way of planning. In other words, I'll have layoffs. I mean, if he's going to run it like a business, then you're going to have to, at some point in bad prices, lay off half your staff. He says, well, I can't, in good conscience, just lay these people off and say, okay, you're no longer slaves, and now half of you are laid off. And they may not be able to get other work. He wrestled with that. He thought maybe that could work out, but there are some problems with that too. The way he solved the problem, he freed a few slaves while he was president. He left them in what was then the White House. It wasn't the White House back then, it was in Philadelphia. He left them there, came back to Mount Vernon and said, well, we're not president anymore, we're going to go back and you can just stay here, goodbye. So a few of them were freed right there. The rest, Martha and George, in their will, established for the freeing of all of their slaves. And to show that they thought through the consequences of what they were doing, they established a pension system for slaves in case they were unable to find work. That pension system was operating and paying pensions to those slaves for more than a third of a century after his death. Was paying pensions to the slaves. That was Washington's personal way of dealing with this very difficult issue.